One civilization is not complete without its art, the highest form of expression of human intelligence. You have become complacent, sitting down and allowing the other nations to run away with everything. You have become a bunch of consumers. You are creators. Rise up, mighty people, accomplish what you will. Without confidence, you're twice defeated in the race of life.
They took away the voices that gave the people pride. Now we're plunging into darkness. We all have to play our part, make a bold start. Every distract, tell every artist. Media houses, we notice, tell them support the slackness. How so much alcohol in our parties. While the girls are broke out at this upper where she drink, knock her out. Now she no care with them crop her up. It's times like this, I'm missing our
Yasama batachinoy, besama yemet nor, semika des mangustimta, fegadi besama indionech, endi hu bemedir tihun, yalaten jorachnen siten zare, bedelachnen mikar belen, igna yabedelne nikar rendaminil, awade fetna matagban, takifua dinenen fi, mengis tiante antenantena, hailia masgan, alesalealen, amun. Al-Kebalan Fine Art Gallery, in collaboration with the Africa Liberation Movement, presents iconographical art in mixed medium. Possession, a cultural expression of Africa, art form that evolved within the vacuum of the absence of African history and culture from the curriculum. In a generation saturated with Western subculture, multiculturalism, and an industry largely owned and controlled by Caucasians out of Europe and America. For the Caucasian producers, promoters, sponsors, dance hall as a vehicle for African cultural transmission was hijacked and railroaded and reprogrammed as an efficient tool for the investment and profiteering, at the same time steering the black artists along a path of self-deprecation, propagation in the interest of white domination. The frame depicts the mental image of the black woman reflected as a Caucasian junkie, bleaching, false hair, alcohol, sex, instruments of violence, and blingers, all interspersed within the music. The crux of the matter, the black woman as the integral and essential genetic propagator of African culture, has become the victim of a mind and mindset of intense Eurocentric cultural decadence, the confines within which she is securely shackled poses a threat of authentic Afrocentric cultural annihilation of future generations. And this is very interesting because it's our most recent common culture after the genuine what we'd call reggae culture. So by looking at this, Brother Shaka, it's interesting for us to see how to interpret it. We are seeing in front a beautiful queen, her full lips and her figure and everything, but there is a spectre in the background that seems a bit Caucasite. So could you elaborate what is being interpreted and presented here?
Okay, the subtitle would be Possession.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the dancehall genre is not just a mere entertainment. Let's not make the mistake of trivializing the power of music.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we dance and move in synchrony with the rhythm, which is our culture, if the content that ride the rhythm is alien to the culture, it provokes our consumption habits. And we consume the conqueror's culture, such as the bleaching cream, the gun, NOC, Clarks, and we can see the ratchet knife and so on, and the pants below, way below the waist.
Yes.
Now, these are the content that is popular that ride on our rhythm. Now, why I call it possession? If you are demonically possessed with the spirit of the enslaver, the master creator of that spirit can use you as a conduit to carry out their death wish. And we can see in the ecology of violence, where dancehall is very popular, how Amos Wilson, that write a book, The Psychodynamics of Black and Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination in a Crimogenic Society.
Wow.
Well, if you look at the word crimogenics, you'd hear about 2 or 3 words. The point of creation of, the genesis, the beginning of. So we're looking at a mother crime that create other baby crimes. So a crimogenic society criminalize all its constituents. And the present dancehall music is being used as a vehicle to inculturate an alien culture. Because when one of our popular artists even sing about clocks, we notice that the sale of clocks skyrocket. Then what if you sing about gun and you sing about violence and the abuse of our sister, in the popular way they do? We can see how we have these child deserters. We can see how the way in which we are possessed use us to carry out the death wish of the colonizers.
Wow. That is so. Now we see the spectre that is behind her. Is this implying that there is a inculcation or transfer? So it's really, as you say, a possession then of a pseudo culture which has deleterious effects in our society, and the fact that it can be passed on, so to speak, actually threatens the future generation, because they will be nurtured and what is available to them, and that will create their mindset for the future. Now this symbol above is very interesting, I find it. How could you...
Well, that's the shackle. And once they move the shackle off our hands and they put it on our mind, if you notice, the shackle associated with the brain.
Okay.
Right? The mental enslavement. Right? You see where this kind of possession, is reaping havoc in our community. Because if you notice, under the topic possession, you'll find different kind of possession. You have ambulatory, which is sleepwalk. Is a popular function somewhere on the island called Dream Weekend, where we see ladies in the street without clothes. The way they adorn themselves is not really Dream Weekend, it's an ambulatory sleepwalk. Because how they adorn themselves, they should be in bed, but instead they're on the sleep in the street. So when you're not conscious, you see, you are moving in a way systematically, but you're not really moving off your own conscious will. So the title ambulatory means that you're unconscious.
Yes.
So then you are being directed by a spirit that possesses you.
Interesting.
Now, if you go to another position, which is spontaneous, you see where it even happened in the church, where a person could get into a spirit.
Yes.
You know, you can sometimes see even their underwear in the church, the way in which the spirit take them over. They lose complete control of themselves, and the
Yes.
pastor even would look at that sister or that brother and say, he or she is possessed with the wrong spirit. So by spontaneous possession, in the dance hall and wherever, we see where our people going around and be provoked by spirit, to be provoked by spirit.
Yes.
In the dance hall and wherever there's music. So therefore music is a very powerful thing, because if the content that ride our rhythm is not our culture, then you can see how by alien content riding our rhythm, it provides employment and wealth for others and impoverish us. The only one that get a little crumbs from the bread is the particular artist that break through.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the lawyers, the promoters, the people who own the venue that these various celebrations take place, you look at conglomerate like Sony and people who make these little gadgets such as CD and the thumb drive and so on. You see where our music is creating great wealth out there. But the impoverishment of our mentality only enable us to make crumbs.
Wow.
So until we start to consume our culture that ride on our rhythm, then we cannot be enriched by our own product. Coming up, you'll see a few Pan-Africanist speakers who share a common consciousness, a cohesive consciousness, that look at the three personality types in the world. The Sun personality, the Sun personality, and the Heist personality. Now the Sun personality being the Arabs, the Heist personality being the Europeans, and the Sun personality being the Africans. The unfortunate mixing of these three personality types with their conflicting values create tragic in the African world. The unfortunate mixing of these personalities impact negatively the African both in the continent and in the diaspora. These speakers address these issues that is illustrated in this iconographical painting.
We tend to see culture in terms of music, in terms of the kind of dance we have, in terms of the songs we sing. And that is a part of culture. But ultimately, culture is deeper than that. Culture is a way of thinking. Ultimately, culture is a conspiracy. That is, it is a means by which a group of people organize the way they think, organize the way they believe, organize the way they see the world, so as to create a consciousness by which they can cooperate in achieving certain ends, so that they can mutually aid each other and gain ends that they cannot gain as separate individuals. So culture is an instrument of power. The individual through culture extends his power, and the culture extends the power of the group. When we talk about music and song and dance, what we are talking about here then is how culture ultimately comes to be implanted in our bodies. You see, we tend to look at song and dance and music as entertainment. And this is our serious mistake. We have a lot of our youth out there looking at music as mere entertainment. When we say that we are being enculturated, it means that a spirit is being implanted in us by the culture. It means our group is instilling in our bodies and in our minds a possessing spirit such that when our culture calls our name, we respond to it. When our culture is in need of defense and support, we then defend it and support it because we are at one with it. In other words, why does the black man respond to the white man? Why does the black man serve the white man? Why does everything the black man do benefit the white man? Why does the black man say freedom is doing what I want to do? And why is it that everything he wants to do enriches the European? Why is it that our youth say that they are being free and that they're doing what they want to do and they're expressing themselves, and it involves buying a $100 pair of sneakers from white folk? Yes. Yes. All of this kind of stuff. Why? Because the spirit that is implanted in the human mind and in the human psyche is there to only respond to its creator and to its master. And therefore, when you let another people generate a spirit in you, when you let another people generate certain values in you, when you let another people generate a certain look, generate a certain reality for you, when you let another people let you see yourself in a particular sort of way and see your own people in a particular sort of way, they have implanted a spirit, and that spirit has been created by them, and that spirit only responds to them. And it only responds to them in terms of furthering their interests and working against the interests of the body it possesses. And this is why there's that self-destructive spirit in us. Because the demon that possesses a body is not there for that body. It is there for the creator that placed it there. And if necessary to obey its creator, it destroys that body. It will destroy the body it inhabits. The taste that that spirit has will be taste that can only be satisfied by buying from its master creator. The values that that spirit wishes to satisfy and realize can only be realized by going through the aegis of the master that created it. That is why every value and every taste and every desire and every need that provokes us, every one of these things that we seek to desire, ends up having us going through white folk. And that's why we think we need them. And every time we satisfy them, they in some way benefit in our seeking satisfaction. Because the demon that we call ourselves is answering to the call of its master. So a culture creates its own possessing spirits and enculturates and inculcates those spirits into the bodies of its members, so that those members, in defending their own egos, in defending their own interests, in defending what they perceive as their own needs, in satisfying their own taste, in satisfying their own values, satisfy the needs of the culture, enrich the culture, empower the culture, defend the culture, advance the interests of the culture. And how then does the culture implant its spirit into its members? It does it in a very strong and primordial way. It uses vehicles. And one of the major vehicles that's used is music, rhythm, song, dance. A culture involves people moving what? Together. in tandem, in rhythm. It involves them having the same temporal sense, the same kind of time clock, so that they can move in synchrony, one with the other. And music is about synchrony. Poetry is about synchrony. Song is about synchrony. Music is about symbols. And you see, ultimately, it is through symbols that you evoke behavior from people. So when a culture creates symbols, those symbols are designed to evoke particular types of reactions and feelings and moods in its members. And a culture establishes the potency of those symbols through ritual, through song, and through dance. And one of the best ways then to inculcate cultural values, a cultural spirit, is through entertainment. Is while the members are being entertained, while they are feeling good, the song is carrying the cultural values into the mind and into the body. The lyrics that represent the cultural interest, the lyrics that represent cultural values, are being carried on the vehicle of the music, carried through the vehicle of the poetry. The togetherness, the cooperativeness, the mutual movement together and the synchrony of the culture is being entrained through the music and through the rhythm of the dance. Therefore, you see, when you let another people take over your music, when you let another people take over your dance and attach their content to it, they will use your own music and your own dance and your own rap lyrics and your own poetry and your own cultural symbols to carry their message into your body and into your mind, such that you can only respond then to their beck and call and to their wishes. And you see then, yes, you see then that they get you to buy those sneakers, and they get you to buy all of those things by what? Associating them with your what? Your music, with your cultural symbols, you see, with your poetry, with your rhythms. And so they attach their content to our rhythm, their content to our song. Yes, but in a way, they take our own instruments and turn them against the self. Notice how quickly, when one of our youngsters was rhyming "kill the police," that kind of content was washed right out immediately. Yes. But what washout occurs when they sing about shooting each other with their Glocks and the other things? When their contents of self-destructiveness ride on the rhythm of their song and of their dance. And when the symbols are loaded then with self-destructive elements and content. So what are we saying here then? That enculturation is the process of building in responsivity and ultimately responsibility, the ability to respond to a particular call. And we then have appropriately enculturated ourselves when we can respond to our own culture and to our own values and to our own needs. One other thing here then, as we rapidly bring these things to a close, we have to look at personality in this light as well. We think our personality is ours. You must recognize, ladies and gentlemen, that the human being is a social animal. We exist in society. We exist in groups. We are born dependent, not independent. We have long periods of dependency. And it is the social relationship between ourselves and our mothers and ourselves and our group that protects us during our long periods of dependency. And in a sense, we never quite get over our dependency and need for one another. And so consequently, we are social animals, and we must then respond to social situations. Our personalities, because they may be our personality, does not mean that they are not inculcated with a social spirit, and they're not designed for a social end. In other words, the individual exists for the social unit, not for himself. In other words, then, ladies and gentlemen, we are not Africans.
All right.
We are possessed by spirits and demons. We have let another people's spirit take possession of our bodies and take possession of our minds. When we speak, it is not with our African voice. It is with the voice of that demonic presence that uses our lips to speak its own language. Yes. Yes, and we have to recognize this. We are possessed. And if we are to transform ourselves and to transform the nature of our relationship with those who are our masters, we must engage in an exorcism and clear the devils out of our minds. And at this time, then, it'll pay you to read a little bit about demonic possession. And we have to be demonically possessed. Because if we talk about black-on-black violence, self-defeating behavior, self-destructive behavior, then we could not be possessed by a beautiful and wonderful God. We must be possessed by a demon. It's interesting to look at the literature on possession. We have a couple of types of possession. One is called a somnambulistic possession. Somnambulistic. Soma, in this instance, having to do with sleep. You hear it in the word sominex. You know, ambulistic, to move around. Ambulatory, right? So we are talking about people who are what? Sleepwalking. They're not awake, but they're walking around. The body is moving, and it is walking in an organized fashion and walking systematically, but the person is still asleep. And in somnambulistic possession, then, the individual's original self has been repressed and displaced, and the spirit, and he identifies with the spirit that possesses him. And his I and the spirit's I are one and the same. And we have a lot of that here today, where the spirit that has been implanted in us, we have taken to be us, and we've identified with it. That is why in defending ourselves, we end up defending the people who rule over us. In defending our ego, we end up maintaining the social structure that has destroyed our ego to begin with. And you see it in our youngsters, who will fight and kill in the name of respect, and fight because their egotistic orientation has been insulted. And therefore, in defending their ego, they do not kill the people who destroyed their ego. They kill each other and maintain the ones who destroyed them in the first place in power. And that's why the subtitle of my book, Black on Black Violence, was Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. We are killing each other in order to maintain this system. We have let ourselves become possessed by a spirit such that when we become aggressive, we aggress against the self instead of those who are the source of our aggressive orientation. We talk a lot as a people about self-hatred. Self-hatred is a personality configuration. It is a form of personality organization. It is an orientation toward the world and toward oneself. Self-hatred, then, is the white man's greatest protection against being destroyed by the black man. To a good extent, self-hatred is the white man's defense mechanism, is the white man's form of self-defense. How can we say that? To a great extent, one function of the personality is to direct energy, to direct aggression, to channel aggression and energy and wishes and impulses in particular directions, to organize feelings, to organize energy, to achieve certain ends. Those things that we hate, often then when we are angry or hostile, we aggress against them, don't we? We attack them often. We destroy them. Then we have a problem, don't we? If we attack the things we hate, if we attack the things toward which we hold hostility, when we are overly frustrated and when we are angry, then what happens if that thing we hate is ourselves? It means then, ladies and gentlemen, that when we become frustrated and angered as a people, when we are overwrought by feelings of hostility, and our self-hating personality seeks to channel that hostility and channel that aggression, it's going to channel the aggression right back on to the self, because that's the thing we hate most. So consequently, black anger then becomes a conduit for black self-destruction, for black self-defeat. The object of our hostile, aggressive feelings becomes ourselves. And you can see then how the white man is protected by that personality structure, right? While he stokes our anger, while he stokes our hostility, while he stokes our frustration, and while we get mad and we want to strike out, when we decide to strike out and aggress, we strike out and aggress against the self. And by doing so, he is left untouched and unscathed. And therefore, our self-hatred becomes his principal means of defending himself and of maintaining himself. One of the things that frightened him most about the Ferguson case was that Ferguson's self-hatred mechanism broke down. Unlike many deaf, dumb, and blind Negroes, he knew who his enemies were. And so when he got angry and hostile, instead of going out to drink himself to death, instead of going out to smoke crack and destroy himself, instead of going out to killing someone who looked like himself, instead of going out to commit suicide and put himself in a place to be destroyed by somebody else, he went directly to the source of his frustration. And this is what frightened those people. They were wondering how many more are there like that, and are they increasing? Yes. So you can see why the seed of self-hatred is planted in the minds of the black man. We spend a lot of time about what it does to us, but we got to look at it because I've told you before, every maladaptive characteristic in the black psyche is there for white folk. And it's not purely there because they hate you, or they misunderstand you, or they don't know who you were, what you it has nothing to do with all of that. I tell people, when you analyze the so-called aberrations in the black personality, you must always ask the question, what are their social functions and roles? Who benefits from this aberration in the black man's mind? What are the social and political and economic benefits, and for whom? Who gains from this particular orientation in our minds? And then you begin to see why it's there and what its function is. And so every complaint we have about ourselves has a political, economic, and social intent beneficial to white folk and detrimental to ourselves. And that means then, somewhere along the way, we became possessed by these orientations, and they were implanted in our personalities. We have come to identify with them as our natural selves, as our natural orientations. We have assumed that they represent who we are. And we have now then found many ingenious ways to defend the demons that possess us. And ultimately then, those demons destroy us and have us destroy others like ourselves. There's another form of possession we call lucid possession. In this sense, the person at least has a sense of self, and they have the sense that there's another spirit in them. And they struggle with that spirit, sometimes losing the battle every now and then. They become obsessed with their struggle with the spirit, and in a sense then are disenabled by that struggle. So some of us are in that state. We're not quite satisfied with the identity we have. We know somehow that there's a deeper African self in us. We're also aware that there's a Eurocentrically implanted demon in us, and we wrestle with it daily. There's another type of possession we talk about here, and that's spontaneous. What has sort of occurred spontaneously against our will. This is in contrast to one we talk about as artificial, one deliberately created. What do we mean by that? When we go into a particular social setting, such as a church or such as a rock concert or the like, and we go through a set of rituals and behavior, we go there and go through these behaviors and rituals and songs and dance as a mean of deliberately being possessed by what? The Spirit. And having our bodies taken over and being possessed, and then we say, we feel what? The Spirit. We feel the Spirit living within us. And so consequently, much of our life is about provoking, through artificial means, spirits which take over us and assume control of our behavior. Latent possession means when we are possessed and we don't even know that we are possessed. And I think that defines a lot of us. We're not even aware, and those are the hardest ones to break through, because they don't sense any kind of split within the personality. They and their possessing spirit are one and the same. And when you try to exorcise that possess the spirit, they feel as if you are attacking them personally. And in defending their person, they defend the spirit that possesses them. Let's be a little more concrete, and I want to just give you an example of what I mean by this. You know, and in the literature, we talk about these spirits as what we call the incubi and the succubi. The spirit that lies in the body or lies on the body, the incubus, and the one that lies under the spirit, the succubus. When we talk about this spirit, though, that possesses us, when we talk about this spirit that the European implanted in us in terms of the language, in terms of the food, in terms of the religion, in terms of the values, in terms of the social relations, in terms of the name, we are talking about a spirit that's just not a spookish entity in ourselves. It actually incarnates in us. What do we talk when we talk about incarnate? We are dealing with the Latin root carnes, which has to do with what? Meat, flesh. In other words, the spirit comes to dwell in our very flesh and comes to sculpt our very bodies. And therefore, the spirit is a physical thing as much as it is a psychological thing. The bodies that we have tonight, ladies and gentlemen, are bodies that have been created by the European experience and are not our natural bodies as African people. Just as the surface of our bodies reflect the influence of another people, the very internal nature and the physiology of our bodies reflect those people as well. That's why when you get rid of them, you're going to have a healing experience. And your whole body will change. You see? We sing the music, they sell it. We sing the music, they market it. We sing the music, they promote it. You see? We sing the music, they produce great conglomerates like Sony, CBS Music, creating all kinds of jobs. We're creating tremendous jobs for a lot of people. How many jobs do we create just buying from Koreans? Buying from other ethnic groups out here? How many people are we creating employment for in terms of our spending habits as a people and our consumption habits as a people? How many jobs are we creating going to jail? We're creating all kinds of jobs and wealth. And we must come to understand this. We are creating these jobs, and yet we are begging for jobs. This means that in somewhere our consciousness has been impaired.
To purchase your copy of this iconographical artwork, contact us through the Al-Kibulan Fine Art Gallery, the Portrait Department, at Stanley Portrait Studio at hotmail.com, or phone number 1-876-570-2255. Thank you.
Grade up the shot at them, now we have a lot of them. Press up, back up, now the grave them a go back at them. Them broke the national bird wing. Sell we out clean, me not think we own a damn thing. Jam rock, why we giving in?